Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Test, test, test. Okay, hi everybody. I hope you're all well. So, hi Sue, I'm glad that you made it. So today I'm going to cover meditating for anxiety and stress, to both of them together, and how it all works together. But before I do that, I'd like to do the usual YouTube thing and suggest that you subscribe, and there's even a link to donate down there if you would feel so moved to do so. Then you can also like if you like it. If you don't like it, don't like it. But if you like today's class, feel free to like it and make whatever comments you want. Okay, so stress and anxiety. I put it in there. I know I've covered these kind of subjects quite a lot in the last few sessions, but that's because there's a lot of it about. And what I wanted to do was to explain how they appear to work together internally, and how you can perceive stress and anxiety in meditation. Okay, so the tricky one out of these two is actually anxiety. It's very important to separate them in your mind as essentially two different things. One is your body's response to a perceived threat, and the other is your mind's response to a perceived threat. And generally speaking, that's in the future. So there's concern about something that could happen in the future, or something that you expect to do. They operate in different ways, although for most of us the messaging system is the body. We get stress. We can become aware of stress in the body, and we can become aware of anxiety through how we feel in the body. However, not everybody can or does. For instance, just as a rough guesstimate, I would say that something like 50% of the people that I teach, I don't know how representative they are of the general population, but I'd say they're probably a little bit better at sensing their emotional state than the average person. Hence, they've come along to learn meditation and mindfulness. But pretty much 50% of them notice anxiety in the body as an emotion, as a feeling. And some people, most of the rest of it, it's just a general sense of being anxious, and often racing thoughts are the kind of indicator of anxiety. And that the racing thoughts is a bit of a subjective expression, so I'll clarify it a little bit more. They tend to be compelling, so when we're stressed, compelling, repetitive, unhelpful, uncomfortable thoughts, and they're persistent. So, it's the same thought pattern operating, often about the same subject, the subject being the cause of the anxiety, and the thoughts lead there, and they tend to be the same ones, and sometimes it's persistent, it's there all the time. So, you wake up in the morning, it's going around in your head, you go to bed at night, it's going around in your head. And so the first thing to recognize is, so I put a cityscape on today to represent the modern world. And the modern world, to the genetic brain, is a source of anxiety. Just living in the modern world is a source of anxiety. Why is that? Well, there's many reasons. Pretty much every human interaction is difficult to negotiate in some way or another. But if you just take somebody from our natural habitat, which is nature, and you dump them in a city, the first thing they'll notice is many, many people. Now, strangers, we tend to be suspicious of strangers for very good reasons. Because 2 billion years of evolution has taught us that just because we've encountered another human being doesn't mean that we're safe. So until we feel safe with them, we are wary in some way. You may not be aware of it, but that's how you're responding to strangers. One of the things that happens is we identify characteristics and attributes of strangers, and we'll project onto that stranger the attributes that we've learned are held by another stranger that looks the same or has similar attributes, similar characteristics. And this is a consequence of this is a thing called in-group and out-group bias, which is, cats do it, gorillas do it. It's like part of our evolutionary past. We need to unlearn it. We need to be able to moderate it and regulate it and manage it. We need to be aware that it happens. And so this assumption that somebody's potentially dangerous is a problem when you're walking around in a city full of like 7 million anonymous strangers. Just that is going to increase your stress level. And then, there's crazy drivers, and there's aggressive looking people, and there are actually very difficult people in the world, and in a big city you're going to encounter them, and so on and so on and so on. And then there's all sorts of other issues that can cause us stress as well. So essentially this stress and anxiety is part of life. So being aware of it and managing it and intervening in it is an essential life skill if we want to make the most of our lives, basically. So the meditation practices work at a whole lot of different levels to do this. So I teach what I call intervention practices, which I cover in the 2020 meditation course, quite early on actually. They're a combination of stress management and emotional regulation techniques. They are things like breathing techniques and relaxation techniques. Now, if you imagine two circles overlapping, one circle's stress and the other circle's anxiety, and then there's the place that they overlap. And what you'll find is that some practices work better for stress and other practices work better for anxiety. So the main intervention practices that I teach for stress and anxiety are breathing and relaxation. The breathing techniques work kind of 60-40 better for anxiety than they do for stress, and the relaxation techniques work kind of 60-40 better for stress than they do for anxiety. They can be taught, they can be practiced together. When you're in a really difficult place, all you have is the breath. Right? That's why they teach it to women when they're in labour, before they're in labour. I'm going to teach them while they're in labour. So I don't know if you're aware, there's a thing called hypnobirthing, which is actually a set of techniques and practices that help women to cope with the experience of labour. And it works pretty well. What they do is they take a subjective response from people and say, okay, how was your experience of pain? How distressed were you? So on and so forth. And it's on a scale of 1 to 10. And hypnobirthing reduces the physical stress and the anxiety by something like 2, which is a lot. It makes the difference between unbearable and bearable often. And interestingly, when I teach in the NHS, I often get people from the maternity department, hypnobirthing team and so on come along, and they're particularly interested in the breathing techniques that I teach. Breathing techniques are pranayama, breath extension, and then there's relaxation techniques. Before I start with the meditations, which I will do in a minute, almost literally a minute, I'll also mention that mindfulness meditation in itself also reduces stress. It has a really good effect on a thing called chronic stress. Chronic stress is something that, you get up in the morning, you're stressed, you go to bed at night, you're stressed. That kind of level of stress. So that is that in itself, this is the following the breath meditation, the basic mindfulness meditation techniques. They work really well. And they have a bit more of an influence on stress and anxiety over time, so you have to practice them for a while. But they fundamentally change your perspective to your experience in a useful way, in a way that enables you to cope with it better. So there's those three areas: the breath, relaxation and meditation. So what I'm going to do today is put together a set of meditations that incorporate those three areas. And today I've got this bell, just in case anybody got bored with the Tibetan singing bowl. I can go back to the Tibetan singing bowl if you prefer, so let me know at the end. And as an introduction to meditation, for those of you that are new, what I do is I begin it by sounding the bell, and the purpose of that is so that we notice the movement of the sound of the bell through time, which brings us into the present moment. So just that sound, we're just noticing the sound moving through time. Notice all of the other sounds. Notice the sound of my voice and whatever you can hear around you. Movements in your building, sounds from the neighbours, outside, traffic, airplanes, birds, whatever it might happen to be. Notice it with the purpose of noticing the movement of time. And so the first thing that we can do to intervene in this stress and anxiety mix is to adjust our posture. He said adjusting his posture. And the way we do that is by placing our elbows by our side, our head balanced on top of the spine, fingertips and thumbs very, very gently in contact. Feet on the floor, and noticing the movement of the breath. Noticing the breath rising and noticing the breath falling. Just at the point where the belly meets the chest. And just noticing that gentle movement. And as you're doing it, you're noticing your physiology, how you feel. If, for instance, you were feeling very uncomfortable emotionally, just return your attention to the breath, noticing the rising and falling of the breath in the belly. Belly rising, belly falling. So now what I'm going to do is teach a pranayama. All the pranayama is an ancient Hindu practice. Science has learned that it fundamentally changes our physiology. I do a demonstration proving that by plugging myself into it from time to time. So I'll do that for you at some point. But today, all we're going to do is focus on the movement of this balloon. Now the in-breath and the out-breath, we're not trying to fill the lungs right up or empty them completely. All we're doing is that as the balloon is growing, we're breathing in during that period, and as the balloon is shrinking, we're breathing out during that period. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. So we're not trying to breathe out for the entire period of the out-breath, but we want our out-breath to happen during the shrinking of the balloon, and we want the in-breath to happen during the growing of the balloon. I'm just going to practice that for a couple of minutes. This is called the 4-6 breaths. If it gets at all uncomfortable, you just move over to noticing the movement of the belly rising and falling. Close your eyes if you wish. You're just noticing that tiny movement. So I'll just practice this for about another minute. Now what we're going to do is hook into the out breath and connect to the out breath to relax. And the place to start, we're going to relax the eyes, the jaw, the shoulders and the hands. Because we've still got some tension, of course. I know we have, because we're living in the modern world. We just want to let it drift away. And the way to do that is by letting out the tension on the out breath and starting with the eyes. So if you find it difficult feeling the sensation of the eyes, what you do is you breathe in and you're noticing the space between your eyes. And as you breathe out, you put your hand over the eyes, the eyebrows, that area. Breathing in, noticing the space between the eyes. You're not touching the eyes or the eyebrows, just that the hand is closer to the face on the out breath. And the warmth of the hand will create a sensation. You'll become aware of the sensations in the eyebrows and the eyes. So just do that for a few breaths, and then head balance comfortably on top of the spine, elbows by the side. Breathing in normally, noticing the space between the eyes, breathing out, releasing the tension, eyebrows, eyes, jaw, moving down the face. Breathing in, space between the eyes, breathing out, down the face, forehead, eyebrows, eyes, mouth and lips, jaw and throat, on the out breath. So we're imagining a wave of relaxation moving down the face. Tongue against the sharp part of the bottom teeth helps to relax the jaw. We'll just practice that for a few breaths. Breathing in, noticing the space between the eyes. Breathing out, relaxing the eyes, the jaw, and the back and sides of the neck and the shoulders. So we're extending this wave of relaxation. Eyes, jaw, back and sides of the neck and shoulders. So the head balanced comfortably and the elbows by the side helps you to notice the tension in the shoulders. Just letting that tightness out. And then next step, breathing in, noticing the space between the eyes, breathing out, wave of relaxation, eyes, jaw, shoulders, down to your hands. If your fingers and thumbs have been in contact, your hands will be reasonably relaxed by now. Breathing in normally, breathing out, relaxing the eyes, jaw, shoulders, hands. And so what I'm going to do now is sound the bell again, and this is just so you can reconnect to the present moment. You're noticing the movement of the sound of the bell through time. And return your attention to the movement of the belly. Belly rising, belly falling. So here is a method of working with the anxiety and stress when it intervenes in our meditations. We bring our attention to the breath, belly movement, or the sensation of the breath in the nostrils. If there's anxiety or there's stress, if there's stress, you'll notice it in tension in your physiology. Your body will be tense. So you just go back to that tension and let it drift away. And you can do it by doing the pranayama, in for 4 seconds, out for 6, or you can do it by moving over to relaxation, relaxing the eyes, jaw, shoulders, hands. And then when you're ready, come back, noticing the breath. Noticing the breath in the belly, rising and falling, or the breath in the nostrils, the cool breath and the in-breath, the warm breath on the out-breath. Feel unsatisfactory, you've got the relaxation practice, or you've got the pranayama, go back and do that. Having a difficult day, your meditation practice consists of pranayama and relaxation meditation. And that's fine, because they're also mindfulness practices. And you can cycle between one and the other. You can move between one and the other. And when you feel like it, coming back to noticing the breath, following the breath. Practice that for a while, if you wish. Move to the breathing, relaxation, for as long as you wish. You're in control. You're in control. There's never any need to push the envelope with meditation, ever. Uncomfortable, step back from it, try another practice, listen to my podcasts, email me, and I'll point you in some directions for practices that help, if these aren't the right ones for you. And then back to noticing the breath. So that's what we'll practice for the next few minutes, following the breath, either in the nostrils or in the belly. Every so often, I'll sound the bell, And if you wish, you can cycle in and out of breathing or relaxation or both. Whenever you're comfortable with it, back to noticing the breath. The belly's just there in case your mind wanders away from everything. And I'll just sound it from time to time. Again, whenever you're ready. Gently, patiently return your attention to your surroundings. Okay, so that movement backwards and forwards to relaxing and backwards and forwards to the breathing, that's like, so we're having an anxious meditation. That's one way of intervening in that so that you have a less anxious meditation. But it's never worthwhile grinding it out. There's no benefit to it. The idea of most mindfulness meditation is to be present, and if the mind is in a very difficult place, it's less useful. Okay, so so there's only one thing. This obviously doesn't apply to everybody because I know a lot of you are on the course, but if anybody feels so moved as to contribute to the cause, then those two links there, the payments one's probably best, allows you to just go click and send me a donation, for which I would be very grateful. And so what I'll do is I'll leave that up for a little while. Also, the next training sessions at the moment are Wednesday and Thursday. I need to connect with members of the mindfulness. This is just for the mindfulness-based resilience course group. That's the standard and premium members on the course. On Wednesday, we'll be looking at the science of meditation from the perspective of, there's an awful lot of studies and there's an awful lot of studies, but these are the ones that if I had to stand up and absolutely defend how meditation really, really benefits people, these are the ones that I would use. And they're either ones that are very powerful in that they're reliable with large numbers and they're none of the things that can make studies dubious. I'll explain it all on Wednesday for those of you that are on the course group. And then so from starting this week, the free online meditation classes will be on Sundays at 7 p.m. And anybody from any course group, 2020 meditation online course and the mindfulness-based resilience course, they can all attend the Saturday course. Okay, so here's the YouTube mantra is subscribe, like, feel free to comment. If you get any questions afterwards, feel free to pop them in the comments because YouTube tells me about it. So if you don't have a direct line to Robert, don't worry, you can pop a question in the comments now or comment on it later. And I'll answer that. Yeah, so like, subscribe, comment and donate, and have a great week, everybody, and bless you all. Thanks.